Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Happy to be here again and happy to see that you came back. I hope you really enjoy your 34 IATA Ground Handling Conference. We had a lot of great speakers yesterday, great sessions, great takeaways, so I hope you enjoyed. I certainly did. The team and all the speakers have done an amazing job. So I hope that you will enjoy also the day too. Yesterday was a lot of about, I would say, the technology, automation. We talk about the green ground support equipment and about the sustainable operation. And as Sean mentioned, today it will be more about people. We will have Ryan Jenkins soon join us, and we will be definitely talking about some of the strategies, how to address the present skill staff shortage and staff retention and attraction that we are facing. Nevertheless, let me start with the first session, and it's my absolute pleasure to introduce Warwick Brady, CEO of Swissport, President and CEO of Swissport. Please, Brady, welcome me at the stage. Join me on the stage. Good morning.
Good morning.
Please sit down, please. Yes, yeah. Any seat.
Okay.
And before we start our fireside chat, I'm sure you all are very eager to hear what Brady has to share about Swissport and ground handling in general. Let us just play a small video. If I can ask for the video, please.
GDC, clear to start. Top down, clear. Starting.
Wow, what a giant.
Indeed.
Yeah, 45,000 employees, 285 different airports. I don't know, I didn't capture all the numbers. I tried to take a note. 2 million flights, 97 million passengers, 850 customer airlines. How do you manage all that?
So, I mean, it's a great business, and I'm obviously very privileged to be able to lead the business. It's a people business, and I think COVID, with all of its challenges, has brought a great opportunity to kind of reset and transform, I think, not just Swissport, but I think, really leading the ground handling space into bringing up the industry.
You joined Swissport back in May 2021, so it's your first year, actually. It's your 1-year anniversary, so happy anniversary.
Thank you. Yeah, indeed, yes. No, it's been a fun year. I mean, the business was recapitalized with new shareholders, so we've got a very strong balance sheet. Of course, they bought the business at a very opportune moment in the middle of COVID. It's been a very challenging but interesting year. We had Delta, if you remember. I think we've all forgotten, how many challenges we've had over the last year. Omicron, Delta 1, Omicron 1, Omicron 2, and then, of course, just to top it off, we have Ukraine. And then, of course, we've got this massive ramp up as all the COVID restrictions come off. So I think we've had a very challenging year, and of course now it's a quality problem, but it's a challenge nonetheless. But it's been a very exciting time, and a time where we've really took the opportunity to transform the way we work. How do we manage and recruit people? How do we retain? Lots more to do, of course.
So if you would summarize the first year, what were some of the big challenges that you have been facing since you joined, or maybe also some success stories that you were surprised or you didn't expect?
So I think, firstly, I was surprised at how passionate the Swissport team are. We've got a kind of Swissporter culture, the sort of core people around the world. I travel one week to 10 days a month all around the network, and I've met many of our people. My first week, I actually sent a questionnaire around to sort of the 100 or so leaders, asking them, what they would do in my place, and I got a great response. So I think the first thing I was really surprised about is how passionate people were about Swissport and about working in this industry. The challenges, I think, clearly were about, how it was. If you remember, sort of at the end of last summer, it had all restarted. So everyone thought, well, okay, it's over now. Everyone's ramped up. So our biggest challenge was we were ramping up for our customers, and of course it all then faded very quickly. And then it ramped up again. Then, of course, January, February, it ramped down again. So the question was, how do we effectively balance the requirements for the demand of all the schedules without the people and recruiting people? And as well, it's become a very peaky schedule. So, of course, matching the demand to the resources has been quite a challenge. But certainly a very challenging but interesting time.
You mentioned multiple times the people. We have had already multiple discussions yesterday, and everyone is, of course, talking about the skill staff shortage and new strategies for staff attraction, retentions. What are the views of Swissport, or how do you manage it? Because your company is really huge, so you are presented in multiple countries. Do you have the challenge everywhere, or is it in some location, countries, airports?
So I think what we said, number one, I'll start with the first question, was how do we manage it? So we've split our business into 8 regions, and it's like a franchise model. We want to be consistent delivery every single place in the world we operate. So whether you're operating Chicago, Brisbane, or Johannesburg, when you turn up, you should get the same service. So that's number one. So we've got this kind of very clear vision. Of course, we haven't delivered that perfectly yet, but we're certainly on the way. So we've divided the world up, and we've obviously been thinking, well, how do we make sure we recruit, how do we become the Amazon of recruitment and the Apple of engagement, right? Okay, so that's effectively how we think about it. And what we've put, the kind of rock stars of our business are really the station managers. So the people at managing the station really are the most important, because of course everything else is a bit of a drag. So we need to support those people. So we've got a year of the station manager. We've introduced a station league, so you can see where you are from a safety perspective, from on-time performance, bags, etc. So everyone can see where they are in the world versus so healthy competition. Mm-hmm. But we're investing in evaluating our station managers, supporting them. So we think that's going to pay dividends going forward, because of course because they are really the face to the customer.
Did you have to change some of the strategies, especially when we were talking about creating new career paths and really attracting a new generation? So is there something that you have to change after the 2 years of COVID?
Yeah, I think so. The workforce is obviously changing. The world has changed. I'm not sure where all the people have gone that used to do the work, but anyway, they seem to have disappeared. And some of the hotspots we've got are the US and the UK. There's some hotspots in Europe. Even we're seeing some hotspots in Australia. Mm. So it's not as bad everywhere around the world, but there are some really challenging places to getting people. But so I think what we've been thinking about is, look, the whole environmental and the ESG, in terms of to attract the millennials. You need a different story. You need a different story for retention. So we're introducing reward systems and engagement programs. We're just signing up to an online training academy for career development. So our kind of mission with our people is, look, if you join Swissport, right? We want you to stay here, but if you genuinely want to work anywhere in the world, we're going to create this career structure so you can start in, I don't know, let's say Chicago. You can end up running a station. You can end up running the UK or Europe or whatever. So the idea is, how do we create? So that's what we've got a new chief people officer, and we're working a lot around how do we think about how to get people in the door. Amazon do a great job of getting people in the door, right? And then the question is, how do you keep them, and how do you get them effectively as part of our it's a very exciting industry, but working on the ramp at 2 in the morning or 3 in the morning is quite a hard job.
Yes, indeed, it is. So are you positive that you're going to address it in a short term, long term? How long do you think it's going to take you just to make sure that at least the hotspots are covered?
So I think there are two parts, right? One is now there's a kind of immediate crisis which we need to solve, and that's just getting people in the door. So we're recruiting, I think, 17,000 people between now and the end of the year. So we'll be up to about 65,000 people. So just getting enough people, I think, is the first step, just to make sure the summer or this the next few months goes up. But then longer term, we need to make sure over the next year that we get the right profile of people. So when we've got a social media campaign now, which is a recruitment campaign, which everyone's digital, which has worked very well. But the idea is, you need to screen the people, make sure you get the right people, because you need people who love customers or they love working on the ramp. Mm-hmm. So dealing
different profiles. Yeah.
So you need the right profile. So if we can get that right profile right at the beginning, that'll take 2 or 3 years. But so we've got a very clear people plan. But of course, it's easier to say than do.
It's going to take some time. Yeah. Do you see that, let's say, some of the lack in staff is impacting your performance from safety point of view, or even from delivery on customer expectations?
So, we've become so at Swissport, I think there's two things. The cultural change, I think, that we've introduced at Swissport is, one is, look, of course, health and safety underpins this business. The operation is the heartbeat of this business. So, of course, we can be getting lots of growth, but the heartbeat is safe delivery of operations. And that's the core. Now, our obviously mission is to have 0 accidents and 0 aircraft damages. But we're working very hard at making sure that culture permeates through the business. And then we become very customer-centric as well. So when I joined, I introduced a weekly an NPS, a Net Promoter Score, where we ask our customers at every single station what they think of us every week, right?
And what is the feedback?
Mixed.
You can share some insight. I guess the people would love to hear that.
No. So the most important thing was actually what I really wanted was our station manager to connect with our customer to make sure we get a response. So the first step is getting a response. Of course, I would like to be, I'd like to be doing a good job, but what it's created is a situation where we get a bit of a heads up, a leading indicator, where customers are not happy with the performance at a particular station. And usually that also can be associated with potentially a safety issue, right? Because when things start going at an operational level, when you haven't got enough trained people, it kind of unravels quite quickly. So we're just trying to get a kind of a pulse at a ground level. And, I hold now we have a global operational meeting every week where we look at all the exceptions. So any stations where we're getting very poor scores or we're not getting a response, we dig into it. So there's I've tried to delayer the business so we really have our sort of finger on the pulse.
850 customer airlines, if I hope I captured the number right. How do you, again, manage, let's say, the consistency? Because we also talk about standardization, and we know from IATA perspective and our airline, they are still not there, yeah? So they are not harmonized, and you have 850 different customers, maybe different requests, different demands.
So I think it's two things. So one is this business has grown up from acquisitions. So we do a fantastic job in one place, excellent, great operational delivery, safety, and then we do a very mediocre job at another place, right? Same customer. So what I've introduced is said, look, and I've got a global ops team, and our mission is to basically have a station blueprint. So it's literally the core processes are underlyingly the same. And then, of course, our customers will want something different in check-in, something different on how they manage the gate. We can vary that, but underlyingly, we will deliver what I call the station blueprint. And we've already effectively rolled out across all of our regions a blueprint which the station manager has something, this is what we do on safety, this is what we do on time, this is what we do on customer service, this is what we do on management. So it's very, like it's a QRH, it's a very quick reference handbook. It's sort of 12 pages. So I can turn up to a station and go, let's have a look at this.
I would love to have a...
But of course, so that's where we're trying to get to. Of course, we're kind of early on in our mission, but I think that'll be great for the industry as well if we're very consistent. If we want to be the company that airlines turn to when they know they need someone dependable.
Okay. So the blueprint is there, 12 pages. Well,
12 pages, exactly.
How do you measure that it's really being followed? Because always, measuring, looking at the numbers, seeing some progress, addressing challenges.
So we've got a station scorecard that effectively we produce every month. And like I said, it's a station league, and we've got, I think it's 64 KPIs that work through an automated system. So it starts off with, aircraft damage, injuries, on-time performance of our customer, not just the number of delays that we cause. It'll be about short ship bags, about baggage delivery. It'll be about the net promoter score, i.e. the response rate plus the score. Right? And so all of that together, we can see now where every station manager in cargo and handling and fueling, where they are on the league. And of course, the idea is to bring everyone up.
Yeah.
And we can see that every week.
Yesterday we also talked a lot about environmental sustainability. I have seen also some challenging goals and aspirations as Swissport has. Can you maybe speak about some of those, or where we are heading in terms of environmental sustainability and, of course, utilization of green GSC and other topics?
Listen, I think we've appointed a new strategy and sustainability officer, who I believe you're speaking to shortly. It's a very important part of our agenda. So the core of our environmental strategy is, one is obviously clean equipment. So we're about 20% effectively green or eco-electric equipment. We've got a target of being sort of up to 50% by 2025. The world has changed over the last 2 years, so we are reviewing, how do you get there? How much capital do you need? Because you need capital to obviously invest in the electric. It needs to be tied as well very closely with the airport partners, because of course they need to have the infrastructure. So, I went on a tour in Latin America, and the airports are not geared up for obviously electric GSE yet. Whereas in Europe, they're much more advanced.
They're progressed, yeah.
So one is that. Then, of course, it's obviously the decarbonisation. How do we contribute in the supply chain for decarbonisation? And then, of course, also then the waste. How do we help with, environmental waste disposal with our customers? So those are the kind of three big things we're looking at. Of course, and Nadia will talk about it when you talk about sustainability. We really are, even at a management level, we look at all the diversity in our business, gender diversity, cultural diversity. So, and also it's a very important part of our shareholders' story and equity story, is making sure that we're very, active in the ESG arena.
Yeah. You mentioned the investment into the sustainable, in a ground operation. We mentioned yesterday that what's proving to work, it's somehow a community approach, that you get involved the airport and the airlines, and maybe there will be some share investment, because of course at the end everyone will benefit. Do you have some experience with that, or what is the feedback from the airports or from the airlines when you're opening this discussion with them?
So I think it's interesting. So as just a general point, where we are we have a lot of expertise in very large base handling and hub handling. And we obviously have a number of big hubs around the world, from Sydney to Munich to Zurich, even in Latin America for Azul, and some big large bases in Europe. Where it works much better is when the airline, the airport, and the handler work very well together. Yeah. And once that collaboration starts, you could then also, what happens is you then end up collaborating on environment, you collaborate on customer journey, etc. And sometimes the airports are not always on that journey, right? They're real estate managers, and when they don't partner very well, you can't move, whether it be GSE pooling, how to kind of improve that footprint, it's quite hard to break through that. So that, I think, needs quite a lot of work, is to try and join that.
So we mentioned airport, airlines, ground handlers, and we are missing the regulators. So what is your view or relationship as a ground handlers or Swissport in particular with regulators? There are different approaches. There's some in Europe, maybe slightly different in US or Canada, Australian.
Yeah, so our view is that, ground handling is not a regulated business. Now, if you kind of look at what we're trying to do, we're trying to be consistent on processes across the world. And what you see, regulators, unfortunately, they do regulate specifically for the country. And I think regulating ground handling, I think, will be will add more complexity. So our view is it needs to be very light. We'd rather work in the framework of IATA rather than work in terms of regulations. And if you saw during COVID, even across Europe, we had in Zurich Airport, we had a 30-page guide for all of our staff for all the different just European regulations. How to get into Spain, France, Germany, Italy, UK, Switzerland. Everywhere was different, right? So you couldn't even harmonize, right, from a regulatory point of view, the approach even in a common economic bloc.
Yeah.
So God knows what happens if they try and regulate ground handling. We'll have different regulations everywhere. So our view is, if you really want a consistent, safe regulatory environment, it needs to be light regulation, risk-based, and I think certainly the IATA guidelines would be appropriate for us.
Yeah, I'm very happy to hear that, because definitely our airlines will be very happy to hear that we are so aligned. I have to mention, because also when you are talking about the operating within the IATA framework, of course, we have some key initiatives that are driving harmonization and standardization. The first one is, of course, the IATA Ground Operational Manual, and the second one is the audit program, ISEGO. Have Swissport fully implemented IGOM, or where are you with the harmonization and utilizing the global procedures?
So a couple of things. So one is, of course, we support a kind of standardization across the business, across the operation. Now, of course, customers will want very different approaches from a customer perspective in terms of how the process works, but that can be adapted quite easily. So we do completely support the ground the IGOM. Where I think we need to do a lot more work is on the auditing side. If you've got IOSA, which is actually quite a recognized accreditation by airlines, the ISEGO, obviously, audit process is not quite there. And the idea is, listen, I think if IATA can move that forward to make it a much less complex and more simple auditing approach that's recognized by the airlines, then of course the airlines can save on their audits. The question, currently now, all you're doing is getting more audits, which we're happy to have more audits, but I think the idea between obviously the IATA audit is if you can certify it and it can be quite straightforward and simple and it replaces audits and gives a proper recognition of where the handler is doing well or not, that I think is the way forward. So I think you've got a bit of work to do in IATA on that one.
Yeah, indeed. And I think that the airlines are quite aware of that, and they are making some changes now with the IGOM portal and trying to reduce the level of variations and bring it into ISEGO and validating that IGOM is implemented and followed.
Yep.
Is there something that doesn't let you sleep?
So, besides ramping up our staff, no. So, listen, I have a really great team, and I've put together a leadership team that it's a mix of people who've worked in airlines and ground handling. I've got some other people that have worked outside the industry, so I've got a very good mix. I personally have come, I started life as a pilot, I've worked for the airlines, I've worked in airports, I've worked in aviation services, and I've been a customer of Swissport for about 20 years. So I certainly know from the other side how it feels, and I think, the leadership team now, I think we can certainly understand where our customers are coming from, because a lot of us have worked with our customers, in our customers' businesses. But I sleep pretty well, but I think that it's a challenging world. I think what I kind of worry about is making sure not only do we get the people in to support the operation during this massive ramp up, but we not only recruit them, but we retain them, and we create the sort of culture where we can bring up the whole industry of ground handling, rather than be at the kind of bottom of the pile.
We had yesterday here also students from different universities talking about their projects, all related somehow to aviation or ground operations. So if you would have to do some kind of sales pitch about ground handling to young generations, what would be your words to tell them, how this industry is attractive, or why we are all here, why we are so passionate, why we all love it so much, and once we join, we stay for years.
Indeed, as we're sitting here today. No, so I think the aviation business is a very interesting business. What I would be saying to students is, look, certainly whether it be the airline, the ground handling, you need to get in the door. I think it's a very important industry, and I think it's not working behind a desk a lot of the time. It's, you're out there working with customers. So if you're a customer, person that loves working in a very flexible and changing environment, I think the aviation space is a good place to work. What we're trying to do is we're trying to create career opportunities for people. Even if people come and join us, we want to be known for, like, if you've worked with swissport, right, you've been trained well. So even if they go to the airlines or other competitors. So that's where I want to get to, that we have that reputation of, producing very good very good people.
I will probably, because we have roughly about 5-6 minutes to go, so I'll give the floor if there are some questions are there some question in the auditorium, something that you would love to hear? Please, we have a gentleman over there, if I can ask. Also, you can send the question, so if you hesitate to speak, you can send the question. I bet I'm monitoring it, so far I have no question here, so.
Thank you. Warwick, Mark Pilling from ARGS, nice to see you again, and we're talking later. When you joined, you're a year in now, what were your top 3 goals set by your shareholders for you over whatever time period that might be, please?
Yeah, so actually when I joined, the shareholders were they had a macro picture, which is, look, we're going to get into this business at the bottom of the cycle, and we're the market leader, and we can, literally put a restructuring plan in place and transform this business. When I came in, I'd done quite a lot of work before I joined with the shareholders, and effectively I set a number of priorities which I think everyone supported. Was, look, number one, make sure the safety environment is the first priority. The second priority was to make sure we retain and grow our customer base, right? Because we had about sort of almost 600 million of renewals within the 6 months. And then the next thing was making sure that the heartbeat of safe, consistent operations was literally instilled. So Mark, number one, safety. Number two, retain and grow the customer base, because obviously you can do a great operation, but without the customers, doesn't mean much. And then third was obviously deliver on a fantastic operation. And since then, we've really all of those streams have come on a huge amount. We've done a huge amount in all of those 3 categories.
Thank you. Any other question? Oh, there are a couple more. I see. Please.
Hello. Yeah, good morning. Being a ground handler, one of the greatest challenges we face is this clash of flights. Like we require all the resources at one time, and maybe later there will be a slack period. So how do you face this challenge, like of resources we have to arrange at a particular time, and later they cannot be utilized properly? How this challenge is being faced by your company?
Yeah, so I think what has changed during the pandemic is clearly that our customers' schedules have become, I think very peaky. So the Thursday, Fridays, In fact, even the Thursdays become much more peaky because the Thursdays become the new Friday, right?
Indeed. We love it that way.
So, actually, I went to one of our customers' offices, and they actually closed their offices on a Friday. So, of course, the Thursday become the new Friday. So the schedules become very peaky, and in fact, what we're seeing is clearly some of those peaks are well above 219 levels, even if the total volume is less than 219. So our view is we need to think about how we work with our customers much more closely to deliver a very good operation, because clearly if you have 20 flights departing within 40 minutes, it's going to cost a huge amount with the equipment and with the people. So it's a kind of combination of finding the right balance between the schedule together with your customer and the resources required in terms of the cost of that service. So I think even with the wage inflation in the world today, with the schedules changing and the requirements, and also the challenges around how do you retain and recruit people, right? I think we are going to have to engage with the customers to try and find a balance between what's the cost of the service and how do we all make money in this environment? Because of course, at the end, you have to pass it through to the actual fare-paying passenger. So it's not an easy challenge, but we are thinking very hard about what's the right model for the employment model, would it be part-time employees or how the shift works, but also at the same time, how does that work with the way employees want to work these days, right? Because we are going to have to change the way we think.
Expectations change, yeah.
So it's not straightforward, but it requires, I think, an important discussion with our partners about how they want the service delivered and how their schedules work. And so, for example, if we do a big base deal, we would incentivize our customers for a more spread out schedule rather than a very peaky schedule. So if we would reward a much more wide schedule than a very peaky schedule. So that's the way we're looking at it.
I saw one question from Andrew over there, a friendly UK regulator.
Thank you. Good morning. Thank you for the presentation. Andrew Badham, UK Civil Aviation Authority. I'd like to probe a little bit your concern about regulation. I currently lead the ICAO task force that's looking at standards and recommended practices for ground handling. A couple of years ago, we delivered the ground handling manual, which I think has been well received. It's very likely now towards the end of this year that we will see the first phase of standards and recommended practices to states covering ground handling. Now we've had IATA contribution all the way through since 2015, ASA, Airports Council International. So what's your feeling about ICAO setting global requirements initially for states on ground handling?
Yeah, we'd be very supportive of ICAO setting those broader regulations or broad frameworks for operating. What my concern is, it's not, those sort of consistent standards, which I think we're all got on the same mission, is how do you deliver a very consistent operation across the world? Our customers want some tailored service, which is fine. What I'm not advocating is a deep regulated environment at a country and a national level, because I think what you see is then you see regulations applying to apply complexity and then additional costs. So I think that framework within ICAO or IATA works well, right? When it's it's very generic, and this is the expectations, this is the output. But when you then effectively allow the national regulators to start regulating it, that's what worries us in terms of what will be the kind of unintended consequences of that.
Thank you.
Thank you. I see that I have received a couple more questions, but unfortunately we don't have more time. We have to move to the next session. So any key messages for our audience, for our delegates, or for the industry in general?
No, so just I think we're at a time in the industry where there's a time of change. I think it's all about how we manage the people, how we recruit and retain. And like I said, we're the market leader, but we want to be the Amazon of recruitment and the Apple of engagement. Our kind of mission is to be very customer-centric and deliver a safe, reliable operation across our business. But thank you very much.
Good luck with those aspirations. Yeah. Pleasure to have you here today. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.